High Admiral Chris Steelscale's commanding voice resounded through the crystalline chamber and reflected off the prismatic walls, causing the smaller species to scramble to attention. Commander Vex Bloodclaw, whose enormous scaled body towered over the other representatives of Crimson Scales, shining under the artificial light of the council chamber, suppressed an amused snort as he would. She was usually so bored during these discussions that he would cry after. Although Dux was irritated by the Draconians, he was looking forward to today's schedule. Unsettling news has reached us, as the crick announces repeatedly, pounding on the hovering control panel. In the uncharted Orion area, our long-range scouts have discovered a habitable planet. An excited member of another prehistoric species squealed and trembled, giving us hope that we could discover a fascinating CL-12 death planet. The room descended into anarchy when CCS abruptly cut in. Vex's 4 craniums burst into action. Vex erupted in a fit of complete disbelief when her auxiliary air vents ignited. Pride in their evolutionary origins on a Class 12 planet propelled the Draconians to the highest ranks of the Galactic Federation's military. Adding insult to injury, World Council member Zara shined brightest, her luminous figure pulsating with serene blues. "You won't believe what happened next, Commander Bloodclaw, even if the data has been quadruple checked." Uncertain shades of purple changed Commander Green's coloring as she lifted a tendril. "The people that call this planet home are really from Class 13, according to the occupants' claims." The room exploded once again, but Vex hardly registered the commotion of surprised cries and worried whistles. "Through the use of his override codes, he granted me entry to Class 13, a potentially severe environment where even Draconians would have challenges in surviving. When the holographic picture appeared, he was so shocked that his scales hurt." The animals lacked scales, natural armor, and any obvious defensive qualities, making them seem fragile and helpless. They were bipedal, like prey animals, and their skin seemed ridiculously delicate and vulnerable to the weather. Thinking that these people had developed on this death trap made him roar and gnash his teeth. Zara's hues now mirrored a blend of curiosity and worry. They had prospered, constructing civilizations in every adverse setting. From the deepest seas to the tallest mountains, their planet has a vast variety of ecosystems, from icy wastelands to hot deserts. Commander Chris' voice had a peculiar quality that exuded terror, even as Vex made fun of it. In place of biological adaptations, the Draconians do this by constructing tools and manipulating their environment. Being a species that can adapt without truly changing made this understanding strike Vex like a plasma wave first. Instead of depending on natural selection to keep you alive, you need to be resolute and creative. When Zarath senses danger, her color changes to a deep crimson. "They have taken note of our whereabouts and have requested a meeting. Would you be interested in hearing their message?" With a nod, Vex's secondary heart began to beat with anticipation. Out of nowhere, Cosmic Standard, perfectly translated, sounded a voice. "Salutations, celestial companions. Your spacecraft tried to hide behind our moon, but next time you should probably take into consideration our rudimentary defenses." Commander Vex Bloodclaw's scales stood on point at the sound that terminated the communication. Then came the sound of human laughing, which may have been an invitation to supper rather than an official greeting from the most fearsome warriors in the galaxy. Vex regained his composure and said, "This should be fun." Following the council meeting, he charged through the Galactic Federation's crystalline hallways. Her gravity may be too strong for you, but their food and coffee were ready. As he moved into the headquarters, he saw many smaller species clinging to the walls, as if their instincts were trying to warn them of danger. Urging him to report on the situation on the Draconian home planet before we make contact, Commander Zara's voice resonated behind him. "All right, come with me to the empty room." Vex, who stood tall over the illuminated council member, wanted me to tell him why we're better. The swagger of an extinct race was in his voice. "What made us who we are in this triple gravity environment, constant radiation, and atmospheric pressure?" he asked, pausing to observe Zara's color shift to an impressed yellow as the planet's enormous electrical storms encircled the equator like a glowing belt. The red-tinted wastelands were illuminated by perpetual daylight cast by 3 suns. Fight under situations that would turn other animals to puddles thanks to their stronger bone structure and increased muscles. They were able to kill most animals in a moment, lift 10 times their body weight, use their scales to deflect electromagnetic weapons, and breathe nitrogen to filter poisons. The hologram cut to a hunting group of Draconians slaying a titan beast, an enormous prehistoric beast that resembled domesticated dinosaurs. Killer Grace accompanied the hunters' auxiliary hearts, which backed up circulation. Vex kept getting hotter. The holo projectors flickered as Vex pounded his tail on the floor. Earth, a beautiful but terrifying planet with air pressure and gravity strong enough to break our scales, appeared in the new picture. Listening to his topic piqued Zara's interest, and her face became a kaleidoscope of hues. Even radiation, which is part of our daily diet, can keep us alive for 30 minutes in a vacuum. Extreme temperature swings occur on their planet, even within the same region, and dihydrogen monoxide is ubiquitous. Zara's lights give out an excited buzz, but Vex scowled at them, saying they had no business being there. Over the course of millions of years, our species, the Draconians, evolved into its current form, with each change aimed at ensuring our continued existence. He placed the perfection of Draconian evolution 4M on display as he stood before me, armies extended wide. Under his breath, Vex said something that seemed to indicate some uncertainty in his voice. "We are the apex species, the ultimate warriors. When the Grand Empire tried to invade us, we ate their battle cruisers, literally. Our digestive systems can process them." Zara's voice exuded an air of intrigue, even though the humans seemed unbeatable with their ability to endure crushing gravity and retractable claws. "We have a formula we call the pinchon. The pinchon catches our attitudes toward the world's precious resources. So, timeless video of the fabled Draconian warriors rampaging across space undefended, tearing enemy ships to pieces with their bare claws, was shown in the hologram. Their greatest achievement, and the day the galaxy realized they were terrifying, happened on this day. The hues shifted to a daring pink, reminding me of Zara. Is the report on human warfare complete? What about that section where they playfully shatter atoms and build weapons that may unintentionally kill planets? They call it nuclear science, but it's actually manipulating the basic forces of... With a mixture of reverence and dread, Vex stared at the Earth hologram, as if to say, slowly we should approach this first contact with the universe. The itchy scales were an unsettling side effect of the pain they inflicted on themselves, which they referred to as spicy food. For amusement, they also drank ethanol and tatinant liquid, which slowly killed their brain cells. A cloaked Draconian scout ship named Shadowfang lurked behind Earth's moon, its sophisticated stealth systems rendering it undetectable to most, while Zara's lights swirled with fun. "Don't be terrified," Vex instantly said. With one last flicker, the hologram revealed a human youngster, smiling and playing in the snow, dodging frozen water crystals that might inflict a severe thermal shock on a Draconian scale, Wright said, strategically. Very worried indeed. Commander Vex Bloodclaw, seated on the bridge, peered down at the verdant death trap of a planet through the view screen's status report. He scowled at his science officer, Rena Quickmind, who was frantically analyzing data streams. The situation was even worse than we had imagined. Rena's disbelief was evident as she watched the crew launch themselves into space using controlled explosions, strapped to tanks of liquid fuel. She mumbled, "Show me." Lieutenant Korg Steeltooth shouted from his station, "You need to see this!" as the screen displayed a variety of human-built spacecraft, some of which seemed to be held together by metal rivets, without gravity generators or inertial dampers, but with mathematical calculations and an abundance of courage. The image shifted to a beach, where individuals of all sizes were gleefully plunging into the acidic dihydrogen monoxide, with some even daring to ride the waves on makeshift surfboards. In the midst of being tossed about by liquid death, one could chuckle and consider the prospect of an aquatic species. Vex, in a slightly negative manner, proposed that we examine this. It appears that they like free climbing, that is, climbing frozen mountains without equipment. They claim to avoid the polar regions. Amina presented us with additional footage demonstrating that they actually inhabit those regions. They have even constructed cities on ice, and when it becomes too cold, swim in ice lakes. Recreation. As Vex pondered the hot regions and their desert cities, his secondary heart raced with excitement. He had also heard that on occasion people would gather in cramped quarters, pour water on hot rocks to generate steam, and then sit in it. A practice known as a sauna. The crew was trying to make sense of this new information, and the bridge went silent as they grappled with the idea that these humans weren't merely attempting to survive in their death world, they were reveling in its most deadly features. Sir Lieutenant Korg's voice pierced through the confusion. Eris Space Control has been keeping tabs on you for the past week. Your cloaking technology is fantastic. But I'm afraid you're not familiar with the term coffee, Vex whispered in confusion as the voice continued. You probably don't know what coffee is. Then the voice explained that coffee is a bitter bean juice that we consume to boost our energy levels. Vex glanced at his crew, who seemed just as bewildered as he was, before the human voice interrupted again. I understand why you would think that, it said. Anyway, I wanted to tell you about this barbecue we're having this weekend. We gather around controlled fires to char the meat before eating it. You're welcome to come. We even adjust the settings. The substance was productive, highly addictive, entirely legal, and, most importantly, not a drug. I asked Ren how they knew our gravity needs, and the human simply said, "Don't worry, we deal with different gravity all the time." We concluded that they must be from a high-gravity planet since we've been monitoring your ship's structural integrity field outputs. Vex was about to have a headache, and these people had already noticed and studied their technology. It drives our medical staff crazy, because some of our astronauts even grow a little taller in space. Vex was about to respond when another human voice interjected, stating, "Hey, if you guys are concerned about the environment, don't be." Korg was unsure as to whether we should evacuate and ask for reinforcements while they casually talked to their unusual customs official. Here, we have these fantastic garments known as pressure suits. These surroundings may be taken anywhere. Our deep desire to set foot on the moon inspired us to create these. Every week, Vex would say, for research, and while we're on the subject, our sensors have shown that your ships are utilizing considerable beings that casually welcomed the most dreaded galactic warriors to a supper, also talked complex quantum theories and beams in the same breath, treating deadly surroundings as playgrounds. As they awaited Vex's judgment, the whole bridge crew looked up to him. "Are you open to exchanging technology?" Vex said, her tone still dignified. "We are willing to consider your—" When communication stopped, Vex turned to his crew and recalled saying, gravely, "We are Draconians. We fear nothing." Serena glanced up from her console. They had just sent us their music collection as a welcome gift. Despite Dave's insistence on sharing his collection of hot sauces with everyone, there is no pressure to try them. Gravely, Vex went on. As Commander Vex considered his options, he mustered up the last of his dignity to propose that we start with a more upbeat song. The bridge then burst into Rick Ashley's "Never Going to Give You Up." Vex had a feeling that this first contact would change the Draconians' views of the galaxy. The Kennedy Space Center had been transformed into a sporting arena, as humans called it. Captain Jack Reynolds, who was apparently enjoying his fourth bag of flaming hot Cheetos because humans like their snacks to cause pain, said, "You want to challenge us to a series of physical tests?" After 3 days of increasingly bizarre cultural exchanges, which included a hot dog eating contest that gave him nightmares, this allowed Vex to convince the human delegation to agree to traditional Draconian strength testing. Vex said, "Trials to establish your species' superiority perfectly. Our warriors would engage in combat with them, disregarding the orange dust that coated their fingers." As he reached for another bag, Jack nodded. Asking Marina whether she was up for some alien gladiator games, Vex spoke up. Vex was taken aback as a little female human moved forward. She couldn't have been more than one. While standing at 7 meters tall, ex-Marine and current world record holder for the ultra-death marathon in Death Valley, Marina Chen hesitantly said, "What's this fun race across one of Earth's hottest deserts?" Yet, she managed to keep her smile and bounce in her step. "What exactly are trials?" Vex inquired. "I don't understand." Vex straightened himself, trying to reclaim command of the situation. "A radioactive obstacle course, a strength test, and a battle in a room with a hazardous environment were the 3 tests." "Can I wear my usual workout clothes or should I go full hazmat?" Marina said, her eyes lighting up with curiosity. Vex questioned, his tone betraying a combination of anxiety and surprise. "After 3 years of CrossFit, nothing's lethal." She caressed his armored forearm and said, "Oh honey." The next morning, the arena was... Even their most resilient soldiers would face formidable challenges in the Draconian engineers' meticulously crafted hellscape. On the other hand, the human onlookers hadn't prepared enough for the event. They were planning a tailgate party with a variety of meats cooked in nachos on barbecues. The first competitor, Vex, informed the spectators that they would be pulling weights in triple gravity. Shorts and a tank top reading "Suns out, weapons out" were Marina's only garments when she entered the gravity machine. The carnivorous combatant. As she lifted her hand to inquire, "Is this like Olympic lifting regulations or can I use any technique?" Marina, encased in protective armor and breathing equipment, asked Vex, who pointed to a 2,000 kg rock brought in from Dracor Prime. "A ton under normal gravity." "Oh, so it's like the regulations of a strongman competition," Marina said, retrieving a piece of chalk from her gym bag as she nodded. "I was wondering if anybody has heard of leverage and pivot points. It seems interesting." "Did you ask them about the pivot point situation?" Deliberated in Draconian pubs for ages, Marina moved the boulder using what she deemed fundamental physics and proper form, sending many of Ian's physics specialists tumbling to the ground. Vex revealed that, in an attempt to maintain some dignity, you would have to pass through radiation levels that would kill most creatures, as the following barrier, which was victory laps around the stone. Oddly enough, Marina was using sunscreen that resembled Chernobyl texture. "I did a documentary there last year. It's a beautiful place with plenty of animals, and the changes are interesting. You voluntarily entered a radioactive zone for the sake of amusement, and I was in need of Instagram material. Just wanted to ask Jack, could you take some nice pictures to share with my followers?" Even though Marina gave it her best, the obstacle course was a total disaster due to her attempts to mimic American Ninja Warrior, replete with audience-pleasing parkour maneuvers and ridiculous flips. Last, but not least, Vex voice. Despite the poisonous environment, Marina was in a somewhat manic edge chamber, taking photographs with some of the vanquished Draconian warriors. Remember that free diving event in the Mariana Trench, when Vex had a resurgence of itchy scales? It was similar to when I ascended Everest without oxygen. Marina proposed donning what seemed to be rather simple safety gear in an effort to liven things up. It was already interesting, then I added some Carolina Reapers and peppers. When Deeks looked about at the other Draconians, and then at this little human who handled their toughest problems like a workout, he felt his face begin to melt. He cautiously proposed that we end today's difficulties because, according to some long-forgotten survival instinct, it could be preferable to back down than to be courageous. Despite Marina's disapproval, I was just beginning to feel comfortable. My new pre-workout pill is calling all athletes. It is mostly forbidden in... Despite Commander Vex Bloodclaw's best efforts, the humans led by Marina Chen were determined to see the trials through to their conclusion. Huge panels displayed vital indications of both species, further confusing the Draconian overlords. "Oh, that's the pre-workout," Marina jokingly said as Vex worriedly noticed, "Your pulse rate is raised." Marina was hopping on her toes before the endurance testing. The effects of this, along with the coffee, energy drink, and those peculiar mushrooms that Jack gave me, are beginning to show. Her smile and slightly dilated pupils indicate that she is enjoying the commentary. "We should broadcast this live." The first real test was the lava pit, where we had to cross a 50-meter span of molten rock at temperatures that would melt the plating of the Federation battleship hull. The Draconian champion Sergeant Ash stepped up in his thermal suit. Marina called out, searching her gym bag. I wanted to switch to my regular CrossFit shoes, but I was anxious. During drill under heavily imposed conditions, drill sergeants have bought loads of weights in packs that have to be quick. Flemish scales moved with draconian precision, testing each step painstakingly. Marina did an excellent job too, and the crossing that followed was arguably the most visually striking ever seen. Vex asked with a hint of irritation if I was wearing a thermal suit, and I said no, it's too restrictive. She then produced what seemed like severely inadequate footwear, my heat-resistant parkour shoes, which were only marginally experimental. While the champion entered donning fully sealed environmental armor, Marina wore what she called her regular Tuesday running gear. Parkour started as she shouted, launching herself between platforms with unnecessary flips. I'm finding this much easier than that hot coal walking retreat I did in Peru, she said, adding that it was just another version of the floor is lava game that kids used to play. The Draconians had painstakingly built the acid rain chamber to replicate the most destructive storms from their home world. Well, yeah, it was from this amazing food truck and they make their own hot sauce, she said casually, holding an umbrella, before bringing out a bottle of Death Sweet Embrace and labeling it. I had to run through a Category 5 hurricane to get breakfast burritos, because the power went out, the Draconian champion asked, his voice crackling through his protective gear. The underwater survival test was supposed to be the Draconians' big moment, as they had improved pulmonary function to the point where they could process liquid oxygen more efficiently than any known species. Vex took great pride in the fact that no Draconian had ever survived for that long. Marina, who was doing light stretches, wanted to know if we could use controlled hyperventilation and the mammalian diving reflex, or if I should just wing it. After 4 minutes, the Draconians finished. Listened in stunned silence as Marina came out of hiding, her expression one of mild inconvenience. I apologize for the interruption, she explained, but I became distracted while counting my heartbeats. My students often doze off during the icebreaker in my winter survival classes. The Draconian pride did worse on the strength trials than their warriors, who could lift enormous weights, and Marina introduced new concepts, like a judge from the Draconian organization scoffed at Marina's use of a complicated pulley system, accusing it of cheating. The judge looked really perplexed, and Marina nodded wisely as she set up another pulley. It's interesting to note that humans invented simple machines while still living in caves, along with spear throwing, which entirely changed hunting. It seems like Vex was trying to justify watching Marina do a triple backflip without any clear tactical rationale. Humans often jump from great heights. During the aerial agility tests in the high-gravity chamber, the Draconians were hoping to show off their advantage in dense atmospheres. Instead, they discovered human sports like interpretive dance, gymnastics, and parkour, which Marina insisted on incorporating into her routine. Energy drinks and the chant YOLO, meaning actually never mind, that might break your brain, are commonplace in the X Games, where participants display even more extreme forms of human behavior. The last event was supposed to be a simple survival challenge set in different atmospheric conditions. The Draconians had prepared chambers with different mixtures of toxic gases, and Marina offered the officially depressed officials some trail mix, to which I added some extra spice. In the methane chamber, Vex observed her as she nonchalantly adjusted her oxygen mask while solving a Rubik's Cube. How composed are you regarding all this? Oh my goodness, this pales in comparison to the survival horror that is Black Friday shopping at the mall. I once used my card to get banned from Target, but it was totally worth it for the 60% off running shoes. On a related note, as the day came to a close, the Draconian warriors encircled Marina, serving as a reminder of their previous dominance. There was one that was set in space, decorated with choppy writing and different buttons. A very different screen could be seen side by side. Another one depicted a horrifying death scene. It was someone like everyone listening to Henry V, explained Peter as he turned the pages. Now market range associated with human toddlers talking about how strong they are. Unless they're hungry or tired, then they become weapons of mass destruction. Vex watched in horror and fascination as his mighty warriors swarmed Marina's phone, watching videos of these little people doing their best to... Are all people the same? He inquired. No, I'm pretty average, Marina said while laughing. She continued by informing him that her grandmother still skydives on weekends, and that we were required to sign a waiver in order for her spicy dumpling recipe to be included in the family cookbook. The mighty Draconians from Terror of the Galaxy decided 2 weeks after the trials that maybe being the second most dangerous species in the universe wasn't so bad. The final analysis reports were staring at Commander Vex Bloodclaw as he sat in his office aboard the Shadowfang. His scales had gone pale, nearly white, a sign of deep Draconian distress. Commander re-entered the room with more data tablets, bringing the total number of records we have found to an astounding total of innumerable extinction-level events, ice ages, supervolcanoes, meteor impacts, and that's just the natural crisis. Rena's voice quavered. During the Cold War, the world's superpowers accumulated enough nuclear weapons to destroy their own planets more than once. However, sir, they've evolved specialized adaptations for everything. Cold, darkness, light, and the desire to fly. Rena paused dramatically as they built machines to make it happen. Meanwhile, Captain Jack Reynolds decided to sneak into the office at that very moment, having managed to bypass all security measures. Hey, folks brought you some jet fuel, Jack said, grinning as he set the cups down. Marina was sad she couldn't come, Vex said, her voice tinged with disappointment. Marina was testing new thermal suits in an active volcano, something about wanting better breathability for extreme yoga. Vex stared at the human, who lacked natural armor, enhanced strength, or backup organs, just a soft, squishy being with an undeniable creep factor. Why do people always want to push themselves to their limits even if it means they're going to die? Vex eventually said. Vex spoke firmly. We grow bored, I don't know how it goes. Jack leaned forward, suddenly serious. You Draconians developed to survive your environment. That's astounding. Vex understood that Jack's coffee was hot enough to blister most species. We humans eventually became weary of adjusting to new circumstances, and instead figured out how to change our ecosystem to humans. We construct frigid submarines, design heating space that actively seeks to destroy us, attach ourselves to rockets and go say hello. We can't breathe underwater. Incidentally, Rena's scales have begun to exhibit symptoms of stress whitening. You supposedly accomplished much of this prior to creating sophisticated technology, according to the studies. It was exciting to go across seas in canoes made of wood. You are aware that we had no idea what, if anything, may be on the other side. All we did was get on boats, decide that route looked cool, and set sail. At long last, the mighty Draconian intellect of Vex let go of it. Vex had a cosmic revelation right then and there. People hadn't adapted to live in their hereafter, but they had resolved that they wouldn't let their afterlife determine how they lived their lives. Final question from Vex. This beverage genuinely tastes terrible, but our study reveals it actually makes us more productive, so we simply continued drinking it until we built an immunity. The same reasoning could be applied to hot cuisine, extreme sports, and reality TV programs. The galactic apex predators may be Draconians, but humans give them the willies. Taking part in Marina's hot yoga extreme edition session atop the volcano seems like something you may be into. While delivering his "The humans are terrifying" speech before the Galactic Federation Council, Vex buried his head in his claws and whined slightly, displaying a combination of deference and residual aggression. I propose we avoid forming an immediate alliance with the humans and instead create a new classification beyond Class 13 Deathworlds, maybe something like Humanity Hold My Beer class, point of order, to protect the galaxy from their enthusiasm given the recent footage of Marina Chen's deep-sea cave parkour expedition, which she insisted was just a fun weekend project, and Vex's persistent eye contact with the human delegation. Captain Jack Reynolds put up his hand to suggest a new extreme sports league, while High Admiral CCS made the Alliance's approval official. Starship races across asteroid fields, accompanied by TikTok challenges, would be the norm in this league. Marina, who was cheerfully juggling plasma cores, smiled from her seat as the Draconians reflexively fled. When aliens tried to attack Earth before, we transformed them into our most terrifying adversaries, transforming weapons into decorations for the holidays. By the way, is anyone interested in extreme orbital skydiving? Extra parachutes were in my luggage. The Draconians, who were formerly the galaxy's most terrifying creatures, now just smirked awkwardly and pretended she hadn't spoken. The secret to winning battles, they had figured out, was to just not show up,